Hello everyone, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Easily Create, Modify, View, and Share Custom Lists. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us today. There's just a couple of housekeeping items we'd like to mention before we begin the presentation. All attendees are going to be in listen-only mode today. If you do have any questions throughout, you can raise your hand or just simply type them in the chat box, but we will be holding off on questions for the end when we do our Q&A session. And as a reminder, this month's promotion communication was all about how you can organize and connect your software solutions. We included some add-on applications that we found help our Dynamics GP clients achieve these results. You can visit the URL seen here for more information on those applications and their associated promotions. And today we've invited E1 to join us on this presentation. They'll be shedding more light on how you can save time with building lists based on any data that is inside or outside of GP and turning these lists into Excel reports or navigation lists. So at this point, I'd like to go ahead and transition the presentation over to Abby Cooper, who is on the sales team over at E1.
All right, thank you so much, Kathleen, and thank you for everyone who's on the call today. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us and to learn a little bit more about a few of our products that really make working with your Smartlist a lot easier. I'm sure some of you on the call already have Smartlist Builder, and we will be talking about that product and briefly touching on some new features, as well as going through a demo of that product, as well as talking about an exciting one. It's one that I actually use every day myself, called Smart View. So we'll be looking at that in just a moment and talking about that. But first off, I want to make sure to share my contact information with you. You see it here on the screen. Certainly feel free to reach out to me if you need anything at all. If you have any questions that you'd like to take offline, please don't hesitate to give me a call or shoot me an email. Also joining me today is my teammate Nicole, and Nicole is our product specialist. She's a Smartlist builder, an extender, and all things GP guru. So she'll be showing the Smartlist builder portion of the demo after I've completed the Smart View portion, and she's a great resource for you to reach out to as well. So if you'd like to reach out to her, I've shared her contact information as well. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in today, and let's talk about reporting products in GP. So first off, I wanted to share with you this, these lists basically, and talk about the differences between Smartlist, Smart View, Smartlist Builder, because I know that there are a lot of options for you out there within the channel, and quite frankly, they sound the same in terms of their naming scheme. They all start with Smart. So we're going to go through what the differences are before we dive into the actual demo itself. So if you look at the left-hand side here, you'll see Smartlist. Now, Smartlist, as you all know, is the product that is just the basic reporting tool available right from GP, right? So the developers at Microsoft got together and they said, we think that our customers need this Smartlist and this one and a few others. Now, they gave you a couple filters that you could add to that list. So they've given you 4 filters. But if you're like me, you can run out of those filters really, really quickly. And they're also giving you limited data, and it tends to be a little bit slow. So that is a basic tool available from GP. It's a good starting point, but that's what's available to you. Now, moving toward the middle, and what I'll show you today is a product of ours called Smart View. Now, what Smart View does is it essentially replaces Smartlist. So it's giving you and your users an easier way to actually work with your Smartlists. It gives you an unlimited number of filters, so you don't have to stop at just 4 filters. You can keep going and going and going. You can actually see your totals to screen, so you don't have to export to Excel to see those totals. You can work with grouping and subgrouping your columns very, very easily. You can export to Excel in seconds. You can actually see your list outside of GP. So that means you can access your Smartlist right from an application on your desktop, and you can cut out a GP user license if you'd like to. And you can also see the list that you've created with Smartlist Builder. So Smart View doesn't replace Smartlist Builder, but what you can do is you can build your list in Smartlist Builder and then view it in Smart View, which is a much, much easier way for your viewers to see those reports. Smartlist Builder on the right-hand side, it, again, is available from E1. So I would guess the vast majority of you on the call have Smartlist Builder already, and you know that what you can do is you can create the custom smart list that you need, meaning you can take and you can choose where you want to pull your data from. Maybe you want to pull that data from different tables in GP. Maybe you have a third-party table you need to pull some data from, and you can create just the smart list that you need. Now, also in Smartlist Builder, rolled up into one product is Excel Report Builder, Drill Down Builder, and Navigation List Builder. So with that one product, with Smartlist Builder, you're actually getting 4 products in one. Now, there's tons of new functionality that we've added, and Nicole will touch briefly on that, but they include Table Finder. So if you hear Table Finder, be sure to pay attention. That's my favorite feature, and you're really going to love it as well. Modify, Preview, and much more. Okay, so basically today we're going to start with looking at Smart View. We're going to see how that replaces Smart List, and then we're also going to look at Smartlist Builder and see how you can create a Smart List with just the data you need, and then we'll talk about the different ways that you can view that, including in Smart View. All right. Now, just to throw a little wrench into things, some of you may have heard of a product called Smartlist Designer. Now, Smartlist Designer is from Microsoft, and it's a very basic product that allows you to create a custom smart list. Now, Smartlist Builder also allows you to create a custom smart list, but it takes that functionality to a greater level. So you can see if we just compare some of the features, Smartlist Designer has about 3, and you can see on the right-hand side, Smartlist Builder, we're looking at 20 features or more. So when we talk about creating the list that we need, Smartlist Builder really is the way to go. All right, but let's actually dive in. Let's take a look at what these products are. So let me just switch over to my demo image here, and I am going to first start in Smart View, and we're going to look at Smart View sitting right inside of GP. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to our top of our GP menu here, and let's just open up Smart View. Now, if I take a look, the first thing I want to look at is I have my Smart List in a tree view on the left-hand side. And let's just open up our, let's say, our account transactions list. Now, it's pulled up 1,000 account transactions in 0.3 seconds. Let's bump that number up a little bit. Let's pull up as many account transactions as we have. And we're going to wait about 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll wait 5, and here you can see, oh, it did 6 seconds, but it pulled up 22,324 account transactions. So when we're talking about the speed of the list, and we compare Smart View to Smart List, you can see right out of the gate that Smart View is much, much quicker. Now, the other thing that you can see right away is that as we look at the screen and we look toward the bottom right in the middle there, you can see that we have our totals to screen. So I don't have to export this to Excel in order to get a total on any of my numeric columns within my Smart List. Let's actually take a look at another list. How about we look at our sales transaction list? So I've selected my list on the left-hand side. Now I can look at any of my basic lists from Smart List. I can look at any list that I've created with Smart List Builder as well. So I've pulled up my Smart List, and now I'm actually going to move to the very top left-hand side of the screen, and I'll go ahead and hide those lists on the left. Now on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see all of the columns that I can add as they pertain to the list that I've selected. So if I go ahead and let's just scroll down here, let's find our, how about, we'll add a few fields here. Let's add our sales territory. I'm just going to drag and drop that column over. We'll do a date, and how about, I want to do a salesperson as well. So let's just drag and drop that over. And then I'm going to hide my columns, moving back up toward the top left-hand side so I can hide those columns on the right. And you can see I've added those new columns, and they add right to the end of my report. Okay? Now let's say I wanted to move some of these columns around. Let me just think, maybe I want my sales date right in front. I'm just going to drag and drop that column header where I'd like. And maybe what I want to do is I actually want to group by my salesperson. So I'm going to drag and drop the column header to the top, and I'm grouping by my salesperson here. Now, let's take a look at filtering out some of this data. So maybe I want to take a look at only my invoices and my orders. I'm just going to select my filter icon at the top right-hand side of that column. You can see I just selected the invoices and orders, and it's going to filter out and only give me the invoices and orders that I'd like to see. Now I can also see I have a blank salesperson here, so let's get rid of that person as well. Let's only take a look at the invoices and orders that have a salesperson assigned out. So we'll just add another filter there. And you can see when I added that filter, it added this filter ribbon down at the very bottom. So if I look toward the very bottom right-hand side of the screen, I'll select my edit filter, and you can see I have these new filters that I've just added. And if I wanted to add another filter, I can hit this plus sign, and I can add as many filters as I want. Now I can also do an or. I could do a not and or a not or here, and I can also add a condition or a group if I'd like to. Now when I complete the filter, I'm just moving from the left to the right, so I select my column and my criteria in the middle, whether it equals or does not equal, is between or is not between, is like or is not like. Is nice if you don't know the spelling of something. You can just do a quick is like filter, and you can again complete that filter on the right. Now once you've added your filters, you can go ahead and you can keep working with your data here. Now you can see, let's move to the top left-hand side to my Home tab, and moving toward the middle, I'm going to select Collapse All so we can take a look at the data, and I can look at just the salesperson that I'd like. So let's say I wanted to look at Greg, but I don't want to just group. I want to also do a subgrouping. So I'm actually going to group by salesperson and subgroup by item number, and I just drag that column header right to the top. And let's collapse this all, and let's take a look at what Greg's been doing, and maybe I want to look at what he's been placing for orders and for invoices. So I can look at specific items if I want to. And if I wanted to double click here and just pull up that order screen right in GP, since I'm accessing SmartView in this case from right inside of GP, I can just go ahead and pull up that order by double clicking. And what I'm doing is I'm working with my go-tos. So I can see this order right out of the gate. Okay? So if I go back into SmartView here, we already talked about filtering and we talked about grouping. Another thing that we can do is if we move to the options at the very top, I can turn on my Find panel. So here, let's say I wanted to search across this entire report for something very specific. Maybe I wanted to look for a specific item. Maybe it's my item, my green phone. So it's searching across all of the columns, and it's going to bring up any of the records that match that search. Now I could also do a dollar amount if I wanted to, so maybe 333.33. How about? We'll go ahead, and you can see it found that amount in two different columns here. Okay, so that's the Find panel. Now if I shut the Find panel off and I turn on my Auto Filter row, I can actually search across just one column if I wanted to. So maybe I want to search just across this item description, and it doesn't have anything to return to me. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn that filter off, and we'll turn our Auto Filter row off. Another thing that I should mention to you real quick here is we already looked at our footers here and how we are getting those totals to screen. But if I right-click on any of the footers, I can also do a min, a max. I could do a count or a sum if it's applicable, and it's going to go ahead and give me that count on my items here. If I move back to the Home tab at the very top, and I move toward the right-hand side, we're staying toward the top, I can choose some export options. So I can choose to export this to Excel, CSV, or PDF, and we'll choose Excel. And I'm just going to give this a name, and we'll just say, how about Socius? We'll give it a name, and we'll hit Save. And what you're going to see is that we just exported this to Excel in seconds. And we kept our grouping, we kept our subgrouping. You can see it also kept my totaling for each of those groups and those subgroups. And again, I had that export in fractions of a second, really. Now, the nice thing is that there's so much that you can do inside of SmartView before you have to export it to Excel to then work with your data, that once you export it, you can have a really good file to look at. Now, the other thing that you can do is, let's say I wanted to grab just a few of these lines here, and I wanted to do a Control-C and a Control-V, and I want to copy and paste just a couple of those lines. You can see I grabbed 3 of the lines, and then when I copied and pasted that over, it actually kept my column headers at the top. Now, I mentioned earlier on the call that I actually use SmartView every day myself for my sales reports. And I actually literally just did this last week, where I saw a couple invoices on the report that I just had a question on. So all I did is I just grabbed those lines and I copied and pasted. And in this case, I actually went and just pasted that right into an email in Outlook. And I was able to email my accounts team and just say, hey, can you take a look at this invoice for me? So some neat things that you can do with that. Now I'm staying at the top but moving toward the left-hand side, you'll see there's a star with a little plus sign, and that's our add option. So if I wanted to add this as a favorite, we'll just call it Nicole's fave here. I can add this as a favorite and assign it to the users as well as the companies that I'd like to have access to this list. So I can hit save there, and then when I turn my list back on, you can see that now I can start with my favorite list, meaning I can start with a list that has the columns that I need, that has the order of the columns and the, the filters that I've added and the grouping that I've added. I don't have to start back from scratch at the sales line items list. I can go ahead and start with the list that I want to right out of the gate. Now, a couple other things to point out to you. Within SmartView, we have a canned age trial balance report. So if any of you out there happen to need an age trial balance and happen to be tasked with building that out for your company, now you can actually get a canned version right from us, and it's available right within SmartView. So I pulled this up to screen, and you can see that I have an aged as date on the very right-hand side. So if I wanted to pick a historical date, I can go ahead and select that, and I can choose to show my details on this report. And I can also drag and drop in my columns, just like I did with my other lists, for my detail columns as well as for my basic columns. And I can expand and take a look at these columns if I'd like to view my age trial balance report. Okay, so a very quick and easy way to take a look and to create that specific report that you need. Now, one more thing I'd like to point out to you before we move on and I pass this over to Nicole. When we started our session today, I mentioned to you that with SmartView, you actually wouldn't need to be logged into GP at all if you didn't want to. So for those of you out there that have users that are logged into GP for the sole purpose of seeing their Smartlyst, you can actually cut out that user license and you can give them access to SmartView External or the external functionality, as we call it, of SmartView. And so what you can do is you can go ahead and you're basically just logging in right from an application on your desktop. And when you log in, you can see, again, I have my list on the left-hand side. And let's take a look at how about a vendors list this time. You can see I have my list on the left, and I have the columns that I want to add to this report on the right. Now, in this case, all I'm doing is selecting and unselecting the boxes on the right-hand side that I'd like to add or remove versus dragging and dropping them on and off the screen. I still have my option to hide my list and hide my columns, and I can still definitely do my grouping and my subgrouping, and I can quickly add the filters that I'd like. Maybe I want to filter out these blank countries, and I'm just adding the information that I want, and I can still save this report. I can still export it to Excel, CSV, or PDF as well. Now, the only thing that I don't have, since I'm in SmartView External, that I would have if I was accessing it right inside of GP, and one thing to note, you're actually getting all of this functionality in one. So if you choose to purchase SmartView, you would get the ability to see it inside of GP or outside of GP, all with one purchase. But since I'm sitting outside of GP in this case, I don't have access to my go-tos, right? Because I'm not logged into GP, so that means I'm not going to double-click and bring up a GP window in this case. All right, so I know I've done a lot of talking, and I'll turn it over to Nicole in just a moment, but I wanted to review with you what we took a look at today. We looked at SmartView, which is essentially a replacement to Smartlyst. It's making your the ability for your users to work with their lists a much, much easier process by giving them the ability to add unlimited filters, to group and to subgroup their data, to easily add and remove columns as well as move them wherever you'd like them to go. It also allows you to export to Excel in seconds and to copy and paste right from SmartView into Excel or into your email document if you'd like to as well. And as I mentioned, you can save this favorite list. Now, just to tell you a quick story about one of our customers, we have a customer that is located in Canada, actually, and the gentleman that we were working with there was the IT manager. And one of the things that he mentioned to us was that he kept getting requests to have these custom lists created, but they were just basic lists. So he was, the users could add filters if they wanted to in Smartlyst. It's not like they were grabbing data from different tables. So he was saying, okay, I'm getting 3 to 5 requests per week on these just very basic changes to a list that my users need to see. And so what he did is he gave his users access to SmartView, and he went from receiving 3 to 5 requests per week down to about 3 per month. So from an IT perspective, an IT manager perspective, he then cut out a ton of time that he needed to spend creating these lists for his users. He gave them the tools to get the reports that they needed. Another great story as we wrap up about SmartView is actually coming from our team. And our accounts person was working with Smartlyst, and we had her move to SmartView because it was, again, a much easier way to work with her reports. And what she found is that as she tracked her time that she had been spending on Smartlyst, she found that when she moved to SmartView and she started looking at all of her reports within SmartView, she ended up saving about 12 hours per month. So that's one user saving 12 hours a month. And if you think about the average number of GP users, that are working with Smartlyst, we find that it's about 10 users at each site that would be working with Smartlyst. And so can you imagine saving about 120 hours a month just on reporting? So some great benefits there. And if you want to try SmartView, you can actually download it right from our site, and you can try it for 30 days in your own company, so with your own data, without needing reg keys at all. So I'd encourage you to do that when you have a moment. Again, let me just go ahead and share my information, and as I'm doing so, I want to just share this real quick. Feel free to email me or to give me a call if you have any questions. I'd be happy to work with you. And what I'd like to do now is just turn this over to my teammate Nicole, who's going to take the reporting process a step further and discuss Smartlyst Builder with you. So let me just turn it over to her. And Nicole, you can feel free.
Okay, thank you, Abby. So as Abby said, I want to go through Smartlyst Builder with you today. And really to start out with that, we really need to take a look at what is Smartlyst Builder. What can it do for us? We internally like to call it the builders. So what are the builders? And actually it consists of 4 different modules for you. The first being Smartlyst Builder. And that really allows you to create those smart lists that maybe the default ones don't have enough data in them. A column or two are missing from those default ones, or there isn't even a default one for where you want to do the reporting. Maybe you're into an add-on module or one of the third-party modules, and they just don't have any smart lists, or just something like budgets, and there isn't a smart list for it. Smartlyst Builder will allow us to create those new lists for you and get the data that you need. We also have Excel Report Builder, which allows us to create new refreshable Excel reports. So if you're familiar with the refreshable Excel reports that Microsoft ships, and they really mimic the default smart list that Microsoft has included, we can add on to those reports as well by creating new ones with Excel Report Builder. And then we have Navigation List Builder. List what they're called navigation. They have data, some of the data, and they can be a little bit slow, and especially if you're pulling more data than you really need. So Navigation List Builder allows you to build new lists that are just going to have the data you need there. And then Drill Down Builder really isn't something to build a new list to get data out. Drill Down Builder kind of complements the rest of these in that it allows us to build drill downs from Excel or from any other place outside of GP back to GP windows and Smartlyst. So if you're in Excel, I could click a record, click on a customer number, drill back to the sales transaction for that customer, or whatever it be that I want to drill back to. I can do that with Drill Down Builder. That can be added to your SQL Reporting Services reports or anywhere else you would like to add those. So those are the 4 different modules that come with Smartlyst Builder. With those 4 different modules, there's different data types that we can pull in. So the most common is going to be Microsoft Dynamics GP data. So any of the data you enter in the core GP modules, sales, transactions, sales, purchasing, any of those, as well as any add-on modules, maybe human resources, fixed assets, something like that, or third-party modules that you might have purchased. We can pull all of the data in using the GP tables. The nice thing about that is it pulls in the nice names pulls in the formatting of those fields for you, everything that we can behind the scenes so that you don't have to worry about changing any names unless you'd like to change them, anything like that, and we'll pull in it directly for you. In 2013, we added a new table type of Smartlyst, which means I can pull in any of the setups of the default Smartlyst. So if you're looking at the sales transactions going, you know what, I like this report, but it's missing a few columns, or I'd like to add another table to it to get some more data, we can actually start with the setup of that Smartlyst and add to it at that point. The other opportunity that gives us is the ability to modify the existing Smartlyst. So if you want to just modify the existing sales transactions versus creating a new one that has more data to it, we can certainly do that. SQL Server table gives us the opportunity to pull in any SQL tables or views from any databases that reside on the same SQL Server as your GP data. So maybe you're using CRM, something like that, where you want to kind of join that data together. We can certainly do that using the SQL Server table option. SQL scripting is another new feature to 2013, and that allows you to just type select statements directly into the builders. So if you don't want to have to go to SQL, create a SQL view with your select statement, it's just a very simple one, you want to type it in, you can do that. It doesn't allow for inserts or updates or anything, so you don't have to worry about people changing data from within any of the builders. It's just a select statement, just querying to go get records. But you can do that right within the builder. Data connections is another data type, and that really is set up to mimic those default Excel refreshable reports that Microsoft has. So similar to how the Smartlists mimic the default Smartlist, the data connections mimic those default Excel reports and is really designed to use within Excel Report Builder, but you can use it within any of the three. And the final one here is Extender Resources. So if you're using our E1 Extender product, we want you to be able to pull in the data from those new windows and forms you're creating and put that right into any of the builders so that you can report on that data as well. So I'm just going to switch over to my image here, and let's just actually take a look at how easy it is to build a new Smartlist. First, I'm going to show you what one looks like in Smartlist, and as I go through this, I'm going to show a lot in Smartlist just to prove that it works there too, but everything I'm going to do, of course, works with SmartView as well. So what Abby just showed you, and with all the functionality SmartView has, all of this is going to tap into that functionality, and I'll try and switch back and forth, but just to show you it goes with the default Smartlist as well, it will work there. So I'm just going to expand my financials here, and you see I have a budget versus actual. And now this looks like any other Smartlist. If you weren't a user of the financial series in Smartlist, you might not even know that that's a Smartlist Builder built list. But it is, and it's going to act in Smartlist or SmartView the same way. I have all my column options, my search criteria, all of that. But it is Smartlist Builder, so I'm just going to modify it to show you that that's set up. And you can see I've pulled on a bunch of different tables here, being GP tables, a SQL script. I also had the option to create calculated fields. So GP doesn't store the variance or the difference between what my budget is and what I've actually spent. It's a calculation that I've done, so I can do calculations. I can do restrictions right from within here as well, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit. Create those go-tos, those drill downs from your Smartlist back to a GP window. I can reorder columns. And the nice thing about Smartlist Builder and Excel Report Builder is that I can do multi-company reporting. I can actually have this Smartlist pull data from multiple companies in one company. So I don't have to log into each company, export it to Excel, and then combine it all in one report. I can actually just combine them all into one list, and I have it right here in Smartlist. Now, of course, that's where SmartView might come in handy, because the more data you try and pull into SmartView, it's going to get slower and slower, whereas SmartView, we can pull a lot in rather quickly there. So that might be a reason if you're doing a lot of multi-company reporting to look at SmartView along with Smartlist Builder. So let's actually clear this, and we'll build one out here. And what we're going to do is just a simple GL batch list. So we'll just call this GL batch, and then we'll just call it financial batches. So I'm just giving it a name of what I want it to be called in Smartlist, where I want it to go, under which of these folders, and now I need to look at adding data. Well, when I come in here, I have all those different options. A couple of them aren't available here because I haven't given security to my user to be able to add those. so we don't see data connections, I haven't granted security to my user to be able to add a data connection. So there is a security behind what tables they can add, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm going to do a GP table. Budget or transactions, batches are GP data, so I'm going to try that. Now when I look at this list, I have no clue which table to pull. There's a lot of tables within GP, and maybe it's in a different series. You know, where do I start with this? Well, Abby mentioned Table Finder. So let's go back to our main GP. I'm just going to minimize Smartlist Builder there. Go back to GP and open the batches window, which is really the data that I want to get. If I just pull up a batch here, I kind of want to know, oh, there's one transaction in there. What's the comment on it? What's the status on this batch? All of that information. Well, from any window in GP, we've added the Table Finder. So you can go to Tools and pick Table Finder. And it's going to show you, here's the tables that that batch entry window uses. Now this still is a lot of tables, but it's a lot less than what I saw in that drop-down list when I was trying to pick one before. But what I can do is take this a step farther, and I said I wanted the number of transactions in it or the comment. I can actually pick those fields. So if I pick batch comment, it says that one's in this table. If I pick the number of transactions, that one's in that same table. So I've narrowed it down now to one table that might have all the data I'm looking for. You can actually see what the table is, how many records, build your own select statements right here. And from here, I could click Create Smart List, Excel Report, or Navigation List, and it would add this table that I have highlighted here directly to a new list in whichever one I click. So that you can see how I would add this manually, I'm going to go back to Smartlist Builder and go back to our GP tables. And what you'll find here now is I know it's in the company series, so I can pick company, and then it's called the Posting Definitions Master, so I can find that in my list here. A little too far. There it is. So now I've picked that. This lookup here opens the Table Finder as well, but I would have to come find the batch entry window that I want. So it's nice to be able to pull it up directly from the window where you know the data is, and you can kind of look at the fields back and forth as well. So now that I have that, I'm just going to click Save, and it's going to add all the fields in from that table. So let's just select a couple here. I'm going to reorder this by the display name, so they're alphabetical, and just pick a couple just to show you we can create this here. Let's get the comment, and I got to get the right one so that our calculations and everything later work great for us. So let's get the origin, the journal entries, and what did I miss? It's number of transactions is our journal entries, and I missed one. Let me order these by the default status. Checkbook ID is what we're missing. There we go. So now that I have the 6 checked that I want to show by default, the display column, the ones that I'm not checking in the default, will be available to add later, so I can do that. Let's just save this. And another new feature of 2013 is that it automatically updates Smartlist. If you're on something prior to that, you would just have to open Smartlist and say yes to accept the new changes I've made. But now you can see I have a simple batch list. Now there's some things when you look at this, it isn't just the financial batches, so I need a little bit of work here. Maybe I don't like the name of these columns here. I can change that. I'd like the origin to show me the nice name, not just a 1, 2, 3. I'd like to tell me that it's a clearing entry or whatever it be, and simple things like that. So let's go back. I'm just going to click Modify to get back to that setup. And now let's make some of those changes. So we're going to change the batch number to be batch ID. Make it a little shorter. We'll change the number of transactions to be journal entries. And I'm just simply retyping the display name. So you can name them whatever you'd like to. What are the users familiar with on their data entry screens, on their standard reports they have now? Let's name them what they're familiar with. We talked about the origin. I didn't want that to be a 1, 2, 3 type of value. I'd like that to tell me what they mean. I can do that by coming here and defining what those values mean. So we'll say 1 is a general entry, 2 is a clearing entry, and 3 is a budget transaction. Now you may have seen my 1 in there, or my 0 that I had in my list. There's actually a bad record up here. I'm not going to account for that. That's not a record I want to see in the end, so I could account 0 and put bad record if I wanted to or something like that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to save that, and now that's going to show me those values instead of the 1, 2, 3. So if I save this just to show you the changes here quickly, you can see it's done that, and then it has changed my column names. Going back to Smartlist Builder, let's put in our restriction so that this is only financial batches. I don't want the end user to be able to see any other batches than financial, so I'm going to do a restriction in Smartlist Builder and say that the series is equal to financial. So now when I save this and it applies to Smartlist, the users cannot get to any of the sales batches, any purchasing batches, anything like that. They will only be able to see financial batches. If I left it as it is now without that restriction, they would have to enter search criteria in Smartlist to narrow it down just to financial batches. So you have that option, but I want this report to only be financial batches ever, so I'm going to put it in Smartlist Builder. The other thing I want to do is reorder my columns, so I can click on the columns button and change the order here just by simply moving them up and down so that they're in an order that maybe matches a report we already have, or just the order the end user would like to see it in. So whatever order you want here, we'll save that. And now one other thing I'd like to do with this is a calculated field. So I'm going to go to Calculations and Add, and now I forgot to open the calculated field. Hopefully it's on my desktop still. Let me minimize it. There it is. Okay. Sorry about that. Open that up just so you can see that. But let's go back to Calculations, go to Add, and I want a calculation that does the status of the batches. Now there is a status in those tables if I look, but really that's not giving me the full status. I want to know if it's marked to post, tell me it's marked to post. If it's got errors in it, I want to know its errors. If it's already reached the maximum number of reoccurring transaction postings that it can have, I want to know that. Or is it available? Is it, different statuses that it might have? I want to know all of those. But those different statuses that I want to know come from multiple tables within that posting definitions master, or multiple fields within that posting definitions master. So I'm going to get a calculated field here to bring them all together. So I've created this one, and I'm just going to paste it in here so that you don't have to watch me type it all out. But when we look at this, it's easier to see here. It's going to look at the mark to post. If that's 1, then it's going to tell me it's marked. If it's 0, it's going to go on and see if it meets any of these other criteria. There's a bunch for batch status here. I also look at, is the number of journal entries 0? If it is, then tell me there's no transactions in it. Can't post that, right? So I want to know these different things, and I've defined the wording I want to see. And so I'm going to validate that. It says it's valid. I'll save that. And now I have a new field going to calculate that out for me. So if I save this, we'll go back to Smartlist here. Now we have our restriction. It's only showing me financial batches. I'm seeing the status. This one has an error in it, so I know that I can't post that one. The rest of these look good. I could do anything I need to with those. So that's a basic setup in Smartlist. I can go create go-to so that I can drill back to the batch entry window or to the transaction entry, whatever I need to do. All of that can be set up on here as well. But let's take a look at some of the other modules. I mentioned there's several other modules in Smartlist Builder. So let's look at it in Excel Report Builder. Since I've built this, I don't want to recreate it in Excel Report Builder. So I'm going to pull up my Smartlist Builder setup, and I'm just going to go to Options and duplicate it. So I'll pick Excel Reports, call it GL Batch, and duplicate that over. And now it's got that same setup that we saw here over here in Excel Report Builder. My restriction is still here. My calculation is still here. All of that has come with. The only differences we see really is I don't have a display in default here because Excel doesn't have a columns button. It's do you want the field on your report or not? You need to choose that option. I can still reorder my columns, and so let's move batch ID up to the top, and I'll just put in a view name there and publish this, and we'll see quickly that we have this same refreshable report. I'm just going to go to my desktop so we can quickly find it. And now I have that report on my desktop with that same data. Now, of course, it has, oh, my Office is going to try and register itself. Sorry about that. Now it has that same data that we saw in Smartlyst, of course, a couple more columns, but I can narrow that down too if I wanted to. Well, while that processes, we'll go back to our Smartlyst builder. So that's a simple Excel report, but the nice thing about that is I can do anything I can do in Excel to that report. It's refreshable in Excel, so it's going to always keep refreshing the data when I refresh the Excel file. But I can also put in pivot tables, charts, and graphs. You know, if you want to create dashboards, something like that, you can certainly do any of that within that Excel file now that we have the data there for you. To show you the navigation list, I'm going to go to Options and Duplicate to our navigation list. Okay, and now there's our navigation list looking very similar to our Smartlyst builder. It does have a display in preview. It's a little bit different because the navigation lists have kind of a middle section and then they have a bottom section that can give us more information. We'll leave it the same for now. Just save that and go back to our main list and go to Financial. And now we have that financial batches here. So we've gotten the same report in 3 different locations. Just a little bit different, so it's really dependent on how do you want to see the data, or maybe you want it in all 3 of them. We can quickly duplicate it across and make minor changes to make it match the format we're trying to put it in, but show that we can get it across all 3. Okay, and of course we have Drill Down Builder, and I don't remember if I put the setup in here. We'll find out, I guess. I did. Good. So Drill Down Builder allows us to add drillbacks from our Excel report that we created back to GP if we'd like to. So from our account transactions, or our account batches, I can actually drill back into the transactions that are in any one of those individual batches. So I've set one up here to go back to Smartlyst, but you can see you can do forms or extender data. So forms would be any GP window or extender forms. I've done the Smartlyst and I wanted to go back to the account transactions, and I wanted to drill back. So for the batch number that's in my Excel file, I wanted to go back and find all the transactions in that batch in Excel, or in that Smartlyst. So we're going to go back to Excel Report Builder and pull up our report again and add that drill down in. And so I'm just going to go to drill downs. I'll put it on the batch ID. Pick that account transaction Smartlyst drill down that we created, and now I just need to tell it where's the batch number out of your list. And remember, we called it batch ID, not batch number. So I'll save that, say OK. This is done. We'll close this so that we can republish. And hopefully this works with my Excel asking to register itself. We will find out shortly here. If I go back to Excel, and now you can see when I hover over batch ID, I get kind of a hyperlink there. And so let's look. This one says it has 13 transactions. Let's go look at PM check and see what's in there. And so now it ran the Smartlyst account transactions, which I set it up to do, and is running that batch. So if I added the batch number on here, we'd see that it's only for that PM check one. And you can kind of see all these came from series of purchasing, now are sitting in the financial series waiting to be posted there. So I can see the actual transactions along with each line item that is in that batch. And of course, it follows the security of GP. If I didn't have access to that Smartlyst, it wouldn't have opened it up. If I wasn't logged into GP, it wouldn't have done anything. It would have given me a message, make sure GP is logged in, as the correct user type of thing. So it does have some security behind that to make sure you're doing what needs to be done. So that is a real quick overview of Smartlyst, but what I wanted to show you is a couple of the new features we built into Smartlyst Builder in this latest 2015 build that we just released. So if you are a Smartlyst Builder user already, there's some new things to look forward to. I mentioned SQL scripting as a table type. In 2013, it was only in Smartlyst Builder and Navigationlist Builder. We added it to Excel Report Builder in 2015 because it took a little bit of a table change there to get it in there. If you're a Canadian Payroll user, previously we didn't have the option to modify Canadian Payroll Smartlyst. We've added that in, so you could always modify the default payroll ones or the US Payroll, but not the Canadian. We have a new template library available to import directly into Smartlyst Builder. So when you go to our website, you're going to see a whole bunch of templates there that we've published just for you to use. Some of them are going to mimic the default Smartlists. Some of them are going to mimic the new ones that I've created that are going to be brand new to you. So in GP, if I go to our Smartlyst Builder and I go to Import, you can see there's an import from file, which we've always had as a feature to import your setups if somebody else has built them for you or you want to move them from test to live type of thing. But now we have import from web, and I can pick any of the products I have. Maybe there's a project accounting one I'm looking for, something like that. We'll just do GP, and we'll go to purchasing today. And now I can see here's all the purchasing ones that are out on our website to download for myself. So maybe I want, we just did a GL batches. Maybe I want the payables one of that. I can do that. There is the GL budget versus actual I've shown you today and the financial batches I've shown you today out on our website to import as well. If you're not on 2015, you can go to our site and download those if you'd like to. Any of these here are available on our site to download, but in 2015 we can pull them in directly. So we now have the ability to create new database roles in SQL. So if you're using Excel Report Builder and you are familiar with the security behind that, it uses all the RPT roles that Microsoft ships with the database. We have the ability now to create our own so we don't have to follow their naming structure, and then we can use those to grant security in Excel Report Builder so that you can kind of make your roles a little bit more unique to you. Table level security has been added, so say you use US Payroll and you want to give a bunch of people access to Smartlyst Builder to build some new reports out, but you don't want them to be able to see those payroll tables. We can actually do security at that level to say nobody gets access to the payroll tables unless they're in this one GP role. So you add that security role to the users, they would be able to see the payroll tables. Nobody else will be able to see the payroll tables within Smartlyst Builder. That way they can't build a new list and see any of your data within payroll for you. Copying calculated fields is a new feature. We can open a GP form from another form. So we created that drill down to drill back from Excel back to any GP form or Smartlyst that we wanted to. I can actually add that same setup to another GP window to drill back to Smartlyst 2 or back to another GP window. So I just want to show you that one quickly. If I go back to, get rid of some of this stuff, back to our GP, what I'd like to do is go back to our drill down and look at a different one. I have one now for a Smartlyst going to the sales transaction one based on a customer number. I'd like to add that to the customer maintenance window. So from the customer maintenance window, if I pull up Aaron Fitz, I want to drill back to the sales transactions Smartlyst and see all of Aaron Fitz's records. So all I have to do is go to this linked forms button and add that in. And I'm just saying I want to, from the customer maintenance window, based on the customer number I pull up, drill back to this drill down. Now I know there's understanding that setup, but I want to just show you the feature. So if I go to customer maintenance, now I pull up Aaron Fitz. Under go-tos, I see that new go-to I just set up, or that drill down I set up. It's going to run the sales transaction, and you can see it's only for Aaron Fitz. There is no other customer here. So an easy way to get back and forth in GP, if there's not a link already on Windows that you want to drill back and forth between so that you don't have to type data, we can create those new drillbacks within GP for you. So that is that feature. The last feature here is new security roles and tasks have been added to GP just for your security setup. So if you want to give somebody access to Smartlyst Builder, we created a role and a task within the GP security model to do that. Previously you had to create your own. We've added those in if you want to use them. So that is the new features in 2015 that have just released. And so just an overview, kind of going back, what we did is we built a Smartlyst. We also built a Excel report and a navigation list, all with the same data that can quickly be used for any user that needs to access the data we had. So with that, I will turn it back over to Abby. I don't know if she has any closing information there.
I think we're good. What we'll do now is we'll just go ahead and open this up for questions. So Kathleen, I know you were working on fielding some questions, and Nicole, maybe if you want to just make me the presenter again, I'll go ahead and share our contact information while Kathleen's getting those questions.
Yeah, I have the chat window open. I don't see anything that came in throughout the presentation, and I don't see any hands raised yet. But if anybody wants to jump in here, feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute your line, or go ahead and type in a question or a chat box, and we will get with you.
And again, as I mentioned, certainly if you'd rather just take this offline, feel free to jot down my information and you can reach out to me and I'd be happy to help you.
All right. Thanks so much, Abby and Nicole. We'll just give it another minute here, see if anybody wants to jump in here with any questions. All right, I don't see anything coming through. So if anyone does have any questions, feel free to reach out to either Abby or Nicole after the presentation. But other than that, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and thank you so much, Abby and Nicole, for your presentation.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.